Welcome back to RT America. It's time now for our weekly Race in America segment with Ashlee Banks. Ashlee, what do you got going on today?
Several Baltimore City schools are closed again today due to heating issues. This week, students have had to wear coats, gloves, and scarves just to get through the school day. The Baltimore Teachers Union is urging Baltimore City to close all schools until the heating problem is resolved. One teacher posted on Twitter, quote, "I'm a Baltimore City public school teacher. This was the temperature in my classroom this morning, and we are still in the school building." One resident said, quote, "Today on one of the coldest days this winter, several Baltimore City public schools forced students to go to schools with no heat, busted water pipes, and cold lunches. This has been a problem since I was in school. BCPS, wake up. Our students are not prisoners. They're gold." Earlier this week, several Baltimore City schools weren't just closed for heat, but for piping as well. Now, the city's mayor, Catherine Pugh, is calling on the city school CEO and the school board to, quote, "assess and account for how appropriated maintenance funds are being spent." According to media reports, the school board is scheduled to hold a meeting next week, and organizers plan to rally during the meeting for improvements to school infrastructure. Joining me now to continue this conversation is Dr. Jessica Shiller, Associate Professor of Education at Towson University. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Shiller. Now, there's a Google Doc circulating that's allowing people to donate thermal blankets to classrooms in need. Now, Dr. Shiller, it sounds like something you'd hear for homeless shelters, not public schools. What is this doing to students, knowing that their schools are not equipped with heat, forcing them to wear coats, gloves, and scarves, while students in other locations don't have to do that?
Well, first, I want to just say thanks for having me. But to answer your question, what this is doing to children is communicating to them that they're not worthy of investment and of education as the same as everyone else is in the United States and across the world. And that's really unconscionable because Baltimore is a largely black city and a largely poor city, and those children deserve heat, and they deserve adequate school buildings just as much as everyone else.
And Dr. Shiller, you mentioned that obviously most of the students attending Baltimore City schools are African Americans, but do you think this has an impact on funding?
Absolutely. Well, it's a result of inadequate funding, actually. It's symptomatic of that. There's been years and years and years of underfunding of these schools, and now it's getting national and international attention, which is excellent. But this is not the first time this issue has come up. But it is a time, I think, a day of reckoning where teachers and parents and students and community members are ready and willing to rally and hold politicians accountable for getting the funding that they need for their schools.
Now, when it comes to that, the organizers, they plan to rally during the school board's meeting next week to bring about improvements to school infrastructure. But do you really think this will make a difference?
I really do, actually. I think that the state and the city have both been put on notice. And as a matter of fact, there's a commission that has begun work just this last year in 2017, and its charge was to re-examine the kinds of funding formulas that we have for public education throughout the state of Maryland. Now, it didn't come to any conclusions by the end of the year. However, this is a time, the legislative session is just getting started in January now, and this is the time to make demands for that kind of funding. And I do think that if there's no accountability by the end of this legislative session, that there will be a political price to pay in the upcoming election.
Dr. Shiller, this issue of no heat in Baltimore City schools, it's being brought forward to the public for the public to see, resulting in no school for a few days and possibly weeks. But do you think there's a bigger issue taking place here?
Absolutely. This is a bigger issue around funding for public education. It's around a bigger issue around how Baltimore City and its children are treated in general. What do we want for these children? What do we hope for their futures? And that's the issue that we need to contend with.
We're going to leave it right there. Thank you so much, Dr. Shiller.
Thank you
That was Dr. Jessica Shiller, Associate Professor of Education at Towson University. That's it for Race